Your success in selling will be determined by how well you prepare, because the better you prepare, the bigger your success. Zig has often been quoted as saying, you were born to win, but to be a winner, you must plan to win, prepare to win, and then, and only then, can you expect to win. Plan, prepare, and then expect. If you want to learn how to sell well, you'll need to prepare. You've already taken a significant step by being part of the Secrets of Closing the Sale Masterclass community. Have you ever wondered how sports stars like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Michael Phelps, and thousands of others are able to win consistently? What about billionaires like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk? It all comes down to preparation. Before these leaders became successful, they planned, prepared, and then expected to become successful. Preparation is the key. Now let's watch as Zig shares the importance of preparing well.
Somebody once said, and I paraphrase them, that spectacular performance is always preceded by unspectacular preparation. Years ago, I worked with Dr. Emil Fales at North Carolina State University, who did a lot of retail seminars for chambers of commerce in the small towns throughout North Carolina. One of the things that Dr. Fales would do in order to sell the Chamber of Commerce on this particular idea was he would take his wallet, literally, tie it to the back end of his car, and drag it around town for several days. Now, it really ended up just a total disaster. He would then put his credit cards and his cash and his papers in that torn-up wallet, and he would go into one of the stores there in the city he was trying to sell the Chamber of Commerce on to buy a necktie. Well, he would buy the necktie, and invariably the wallets were in the same counter there displayed where the neckties were. He would pull out that beaten-up old wallet to get his money or his credit card out, and then he would always drop it. And when that torn-up wallet would fall, credit cards and cash and all of his papers would scatter all over the place. And he said, without exception, in 100% of the cases, the clerk would always assist him in picking up the papers and the credit cards and the money. But he said, in all the times he did it, he never had a single one of them to say, you know, what you really need also is a new wallet. Isn't it amazing? And he was able to sell the Chamber of Commerce. He would identify the store and say they obviously need help. And as a result, he was able to sell the seminar, and the attendance was always really marvelous.
Thanks, Zig, for your thoughts on proper preparation before you make the sale. Now, this reminds me of a little story, and I got to go back actually 30 years ago. It was 1987, and I was actually going to meet Donald Trump, who had just come out with his book, The Art of the Deal. Now, I'm not making a political statement here because this is 30 years ago, long before Donald was ever president. He was an entrepreneur, I was an entrepreneur, and I wanted to have a meeting with him because he was a great real estate developer. I wanted to have a meeting with him to take his product, which I wanted to develop, which was how to make money in real estate, to the infomercial marketplace. So I had to prepare for that sale. This wasn't just, oh, let me just show up at Donald's office, right? So I actually had to make 4 sales in this whole process. So you talk about preparation, let me detail it. The first piece of preparation was, how am I going to get to Donald, because I got to get through the gatekeeper. So I had to sell the gatekeeper. In this case, it turned out to be Tony Schwartz, who was the author of The Art of the Deal, which was a bestseller at the time, by the way, right? Now, I convinced Tony that I have an idea that can sell a lot more books. So this was a benefit to Tony, and it was going to be a benefit to Donald. But so I convinced Tony, and now I armed Tony with the information on how to convince Donald. So that was step 2. Step 1, convince Tony. Step 2, Tony convinced Donald to take the meeting. Now I get the meeting set, because that was all successful. I'm in the Trump Tower, getting ready to meet with Donald, and Donald says, wait a minute, you're not going to sit down in that chair unless you tell me why I should let you sit down in that chair, which means how much of my time might this deal take that you're going to be pitching me, and what is my potential upside, because I got too many other things to do today, and if you don't have the right answers, you can turn around and get out of here, right? So I was impressed by his allocation of a few minutes that he was going to give me, but I said to Donald, I'm going to give you a pitch, and I'm going to need, if you say yes to my pitch, I'm only going to need 4 hours of your life, and you can make $4 million. All right? He counted to about 5 in his head because he couldn't say yes, sit down right away. And then he said, okay, sit down. That was step number 3, getting Donald to allow me now to pitch him. And then step 4 was actually making the pitch of what I wanted to do, which was to take his brilliant real estate ideas to the mass marketplace, which when we were all done, he said yes. So the 4 steps. Pitch the gatekeeper, tell the gatekeeper how to pitch Donald on sitting down and talking to me, and then pitch Donald with the deal. And this was all back 30 years ago, and it was an unbelievable preparation effort. So I say, pitching and selling, it's not always one step. And as Zig Ziglar said, if you plan to win and prepare to win, you can always expect to win.
Now that we've revealed the secret to you, preparation precedes achievements. It's time to take action. You can't expect to achieve your goals in selling or in life if you haven't done the work of preparation. In your guidebook, we have formulated a tool called Plan, Prepare, Expect to help you be sure you're taking the proper steps to prepare so you can achieve. If you haven't already, take out your guidebook and complete your exercises and record your key takeaway for this secret so you can start enjoying your sales success now.
Selling requires both emotion and logic. You have to sell both the head and the heart. One or the other by itself won't work. How many times have you shared facts about your idea, product, or service and people didn't buy into it? You know why? In many cases, it's because you connected with the head but not the heart. You left the emotions unaddressed. On the other hand, you may have really tugged at someone's heartstrings but didn't give them a logical path to understand how your idea, product, or service would actually work. Successful selling requires a balance between logic and emotion. Let's watch a series of short clips from Zig on this connection between emotion and logic, beginning with how his own wife sold him on buying a house. You see, she had found a house she loved, but it was out of the price range she and Zig had agreed on. She had already established the logic behind the purchase, so she went to work by connecting with him emotionally. Let's watch this one.
And then finally, when the tour of the house was all over, we stood there, and she reached over and she squeezed my hand, and she looked up into my eyes, all 5 feet of her, and said, "Honey, how do you feel about this home?" Now that's sales lesson number 7. You ask the prospect how they feel, not what they think. Interestingly enough, people buy emotionally. They buy with their heart, not with their head. How do you feel? And I said, "Well, sweetheart, it's beautiful. What else could I say?" I mean, there I was. You think I'm going to look down in that smiling face, looking up into my eyes and say, "No, I don't like this house. It's just a wild idea you got"? No way. So I said, "Sweetheart, it's absolutely gorgeous. I would love to have it." According to my good friend and fellow sales trainer, Merle Fraser, in the next 24 hours, your prospect's heart will beat 103,689 times. His blood will travel 168,000 miles. His lungs will inhale 23,240 times. He'll eat 3.5 pounds of food. He'll exercise only 7 million of his 9 billion brain cells. He'll speak 4,800 words, of which 3,200 involve something about himself. And not a single one will be about you, your products, or services, unless you figure out a way to involve him emotionally with your sales situation. The only way you're going to get your share of his attention and His words is to use your sales skill and imagination to make yourself a part of His world. See, if you use all logic in a presentation, then you'll have the best educated prospect in town and he'll go down the street and buy something. If you use all emotion in the presentation, then they'll get emotionally involved and buy, but then they might cancel on you the next day or the next week. Tie them together, and he will buy logically today, or he will buy emotionally today, but based on some logical reasons, and consequently he will be sold. You're building a career. Now, the logic are the eyes. We believe what we see. The emotion is the voice. We are moved by the tone and words in that voice.
Thank you, Zig. It really is important to connect to the head and the heart, as Zig says. In fact, I've known this myself very powerfully for many years, because let's talk about infomercials and let's talk about testimonials, for example. When we do an infomercial, a testimonial has to appeal ultimately in the course of the show to both the head and the heart. And I want to talk about the 5 types of testimonials that exist, because you'll see how we address both sides, head and heart and emotion and logic. The first type of testimonial is a consumer testimonial, someone that uses the product. This is generally emotional. They're talking about how they use it, they love it, it's changed their life. The second type is celebrity-based testimony, where you kind of step up the ladder a little bit to someone that's famous. It's somebody that might be saying, I love this product, and hey, you might see me on TV, and there's an emotional connection to that celebrity. There's a professional testimonial. It might be a doctor or a lawyer. And so if it's skincare and you have a doctor talking about the logical reasons, the science behind the product and why maybe acne is cured or something like that, that's logic and it's science. The next one is the fourth type of testimonial, which is called clinical. And this is where you actually have like a product testing lab where they have a stamp of approval, and obviously this is logical, right? That it logically works because it's been tested in a lab and it's proven to work, and this is science also. So you've got the 4 types. The consumer is emotional, the celebrity is emotional, the professional is logical, the clinical is logical, and the 5th type covers both spectrums, and this is called editorial testimonial. This might be a newspaper, a magazine, a TV show, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, whoever it might be, but now they generally will cover both emotion and logic, because they have to be fair in their reporting, and they're going to talk about maybe the celebrities that are emotional, and they're going to talk about the clinical studies behind it, but they also then need to talk about all aspects of emotion and logic. This 5th type of testimonial, which is editorial, is very powerful because it covers both. And you can't buy yourself into the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. I want to just say this. If you only sell with logic, people are not going to connect with you emotionally. Instead of buying from you, they'll move on to buy something similar to what you were selling. Sell in such a way that is logical and makes sense to purchase, but also connect with them on an emotional level. If you sell only with emotion, people will be excited to buy, but may cancel later because the logical appeal wasn't enough to keep them committed to the purchase. So sell in such a way that it's emotional, but also maintains the logical reasons of why they should purchase. Good selling requires both emotion and logic.
Now that you know the secret, selling requires emotion and logic. It's time to take action. Do you really know yourself? Using testimonials can be a great way to combine emotion and logic to touch the head and the heart of your clients. If you haven't already, open your guidebook and complete your exercises and record your key takeaway for this secret so you can start enjoying your sales success now.
When you hear an objection to what you're selling, congratulations. Objections are opportunities to sell. Too many people see them as challenges. But a person who raises an objection is actually engaging with you and demonstrating interest in your idea, product, or service. They're not ignoring you, and that's a good thing. Remember, if everyone could sell anything without having to encounter objections, there'd be no value in learning to sell well. Let's look at a formula Zig used that will allow you to deal with real objections and handle them in an efficient and effective way. And here's an easy way to remember it. When objections occur, the sales pro will get quiet. That's Q-U-I-E-T. That's right. Each letter in the word quiet stands for a step you can take to help your prospect gather enough information to overcome their objections. When you get an objection, just you pause, think quiet. Start by asking a question. That's the cue. You must ask questions so that you can understand the objection. Understand is the you. So once you understand the objection, then you must identify the objection, and identify is the I. To identify the proper objection and not be fooled by a false objection, you must empathize with the person, and that's the E. If you empathize instead of sympathizing with the prospect, you're ready to test the objection. That's the T. When you test the objection and prove it real, you can eliminate the prospect's concerns and dramatically improve your chances of making the sale. So, again, let's take a look at quiet. What does it stand for? Quiet stands for question, understand, identify, empathize, and test. Let's watch now as Zig delves more into seeing objections as opportunities to make a sale.
It might come as a surprise to you when I say this, but the thing salespeople ought to get the most excited about actually are objections. Because you see, if there were no objections to begin with, there'd be no need for us as salespeople. People would just go ahead and buy everything and we would be out of the picture. One of the most important aspects of selling is dealing with those objections. To begin with, let's understand the basic difference between a question and an objection. A question simply means they're seeking information. How long will it take for delivery? What colors does this come in? Actually, a person who raises an objection is looking for encouragement. They are saying, I have an interest in this, and I want you to give me some encouragement about the way I can end up owning what you are selling. No objections and no interest, I think, would go together without any doubt. Some basics about objections are simply these. Objections are our friends. They clearly say to us as salespeople, yes, I am interested in what you are selling. You don't have to answer all objections. Now, that's the first thing that I want to make clear. For example, the suit of clothes I have on. I did not like all of the things about the suit. There are two things, as a matter of fact, I didn't like about it, and yet I bought the suit. Now, what are the two things I didn't like? Well, I wasn't overly excited about the price. I'll just have to fess up going in. I wasn't. And the second thing I didn't like about it was the fact that I have to wear a belt. I prefer the other kind. But my wife told me it was a nice fit and that the color went well with me. She said, honey, I like it. All objections were overcome. I bought the suit. Now, the third thing about objections is the fact that approximately 90% of them will be the same when you're out in the world of selling. And really, what you need in many cases is a new presentation or a more conclusive or inclusive presentation, because if the same one keeps coming up or the same ones, it really does indicate that you're not doing enough selling in the presentation itself. Now, let me say this as point number 4. There's a formula which fits in most cases, and you can adapt this formula and follow the formula in handling objections. However, we need to remember that there are many different kinds of prospects. Many different kinds. You have the animal prospect who's going to bear it in mind. The insomniac prospect who's going to sleep on it. The musical prospect who'll make a note of it. And the playful prospect who's just feeling out the market. Yeah, we've got a lot of different ones. Now, The thing I believe we need to clearly understand is that all prospects, regardless of what kind they are, have two basic things in common. Number one, they want to be right. Now, salespeople, you can relate to that. You know you want to be right. And number two, all of us will relate to also. The prospect really wants to be understood. Now, there are 4 times and opportunities to handle objections. The first is before they occur. The second time is when they occur. The third time is later on in the presentation. And the fourth time is never. Some objections just simply should never be given any credibility at all. By far, the most effective place to handle an objection is before it occurs. When the same one keeps coming up, as I said a moment ago, you need to reorganize that presentation. Many years ago, a man named Harry Lemons, who was the inventor of this particular machine, taught me a couple of things that I was really excited about. I used to demonstrate these things at the state fairs and on television. I've sold lots of these machines. How many of you have ever seen one of these things demonstrated? Can I see your hand? I use this machine, man, when I turn that crank, that food would come tumbling out, and we really could make it do tricks. We could make that machine talk, cutting those fresh vegetables. Invariably, we encountered 2 major objections. I'd be right in the middle of the demonstration, and some member of the group there, a lady generally, because they'd be the ones who would end up using it at home, would ask me, Mr. Ziegler, if I bought that machine, could I use it like you use it? I'd always look at her and I'd smile and I'd say, no, ma'am, there's no way that you will ever be able to use this machine like I use it. Now, you might think that's a strange thing for me to say, but I did it for a couple of reasons. Number one, I was telling her the truth. I don't believe there's a housewife in 10,000 who could ever learn to use that machine as I did, and I explained why. Basically, they've got 101 other things to do. They're going to use it, 2 or 3 or 4 times a week. I was using it several hours every single day. It's not likely that they could do with it what I could do. Now, I would have answered it that far, but how many machines would I have sold if I'd stopped it right there? I wanted to sell machines, so here's what I answered with in the presentation. I'd say, no, ma'am, you could never use it like I do because you have so many other things to do. But let me tell you how effectively you can use it. The machine comes with an instruction book, and I can give you this book right now. And if you will spend 5 minutes reading the book, I can give knives, and I'd pick out the 3 ladies who were closest to me. I can give the sharpest knives available to these 3 ladies. And in 5 minutes' time with this machine, you can cut more food better and faster than all 3 of these ladies combined with the knives. You've never used the machine. They've been using knives all of their lives. But you could cut more with the machine, not because you're an expert with the machine, but because you have the machine which does the job. And that's what you really want, isn't it? And I would use that also as a trial close right there. And then, as you can see, we have 5 blades. 1 blade is on the machine, and there are 4 other blades, and it'll do an awful lot of things. I would demonstrate one of the blades, and then when I finished demonstrating the first blade, I'd use another trial close. I would have cut about 7 or 8 foods, and I'd say, as you can see, we only have used 1 blade, and we've cut all of this beautiful food. Now, ladies, let me ask you, if the machine only had 1 blade, how many of you already feel that's something that you really want to have in your home? Can I see your hands? And I would get my best prospects immediately right there. Then I would demonstrate the rest of the blades. Now, the second objection that would often come up, and I'd be demonstrating, I would bring this up myself. I'd say a lot of times I've had people ask me, Mr. Ziegler, if I bought that machine, could I cut my hand on it? And I'd always kind of grin and I'd say, yes, ma'am, but now we don't recommend it. But if that's really what you want to do, it's a very simple procedure. All it takes is coordination. You insert the finger as you turn the crank. Now get it straight. Insert finger, turn crank, and when you do, the red comes out right here. Now, if you don't want to cut your hand, keep it out of the machine. Now, what is this doing? You're selling on the offense. Your believability is greater if you handle the objections in the body of the presentation. Otherwise, you are apparently defending instead of selling on the offense.
Okay, we let you in on the secret. Objections are opportunities to sell. It's time to take action. Zig used the quiet framework to help him overcome objections and make the sale. Try this method in your own sales to produce success. If you haven't already, go ahead and pull out your guidebook and complete your exercises and record your key takeaway for this secret so you can start enjoying your sales success now.
How many times have you heard the word no? Have you ever been immediately shut down when trying to sell your idea, product, or service? Look, we've all had it happen. It's happened to me many times. In fact, when I first started out in my selling career, I was usually met with a quick no. From sealing driveways to launching products to building and selling entire companies, I've heard my fair share of no's, believe me. But early on, when I was selling door to door, I learned to enjoy hearing a quick no. Here's why. The impulsive person who would give me such a quick decision not to buy could be easily turned around to buy once I established the value of what I was selling. So quick no's identify decision makers, and decision makers are what you want when you're selling anything. A no is a powerful opportunity. Be happy when you hear it and prepared to take advantage of the opportunity when it comes. When someone says no, it may just mean the price is still outweighing the value. It means you have to go back to the drawing board and rework your approach, adjust your web copy, tweak your digital funnel, change your presentation, or as Zig Ziglar is about to demonstrate, you need to make sure the value of whatever it is you're selling is above your price. Then, and only then, will you have a greater chance of closing more sales. And here's Zig.
How many of you would give me $100 for a product that you knew was worth only $25? I don't see any hands up. Suppose I used my 3 best bear trap closes. Then would you give me the $100 for the $25 value? Suppose I explained that my wife and kids would suffer if you don't buy. Or some of you soft-hearted ones might go ahead and buy, but you're not going to build a career that way. The sales point I want to make is this. When the prospect says no, you back up when you insist and apply pressure because he won't change his mind. Let me say that again. When the prospect says no, he won't change his mind. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking to yourself, now, wait a minute, Ziglar. Every time I make a sale, they've already told me no, 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 no. I don't doubt that for a moment. I asked the redhead to marry me, and she said no. Ask her the second time, no. Third time, no. Fourth time, no. Fifth time, no. Sixth time, she said, okay. But she never changed her mind. Please understand this, salespeople. When a prospect says no, before they can change their mind, they've got to admit they were wrong, that they were made a mistake. How many of you are willing to admit that you made a mistake? It's a tough thing to do. They won't do it, but let me tell you what they will do. They'll do exactly the same thing the redhead did. She made a new decision based on new information. If you would be professional in the world of selling, let me get you to do this. Think of the prospect's mind like a pair of scales. When the value in the prospect's mind exceeds the price, you have a prospect. But as long as in that prospect's mind the price is $100 and the value is $25, you really don't have a chance for a sale. Now, you can't really change the price, but you can change the value. And that's the reason every close that you use should give additional information so that every close that prospect is seeing more and more reasons for saying yes. And when you get that value above the price, that is the point. You will make a sale.
Wow, isn't that counterintuitive? Usually when we hear a no, we assume it means no for good. But it actually means the prospect just doesn't have enough information to make the right decision to purchase whatever it is you're selling. As Zig said, you've got to get the value to outweigh the price. So Kevin, what do you do when you hear a quick no? And to add on to that, what would you recommend our members do when they hear no?
So I believe a no is a good thing, right?
Okay.
So because they've now made a decision.
Okay.
So no means they made a decision, because the worst time that you can get in a sale is I don't know, or I'm not sure, or a procrastinator, right? But no means no, I've made my mind up, right? So it's like somebody that I would go to their door, knock on their door, and they would be like, I'm not interested.
Right.
Well, they made a decision. No, don't even talk to me, right? But I would say to myself, actually, someone that's now made a decision, I know that's a good thing, because once I give them the right information, they can make a new decision to say yes. And so I see it as a buying opportunity, actually.
Okay.
So I believe that no is, at the end of the day, you got to get to the reason why they're saying no.
Okay.
So it might be a series of objections or one objection. What I do is try to find out what the objections are and isolate them.
All right.
So that you can then address each objection, and usually, unless he's got 10 or 20, which, Zig would say, you're not an objection machine, you're not an objection answering machine, you just gotta, get to it or not, right? But I do believe that if someone has 2 or 3 objections, isolate them one by one, cover those points, and then you move them along to where now, okay, you've covered all their objections, they can say yes. And so this, to me, is many times a series of making sure that the value outweighs either the price or what the opportunity is.
Okay.
And so and keep in mind, I come from a business, TV, where we put the spot up, we're not sitting in front of that customer when we're getting them to pick up the phone and give us their credit card.
Right.
So we have to move them to pick up the phone, give a stranger a credit card without knowing who it is they're talking to. We can't answer their objections, and we sold $5 billion doing that, okay? So what was so important there was understanding ahead of time, what are the objections?
Okay.
So we did this by, number one, asking a lot of questions, and there's, Ryan Levesque is an amazing guy at asking questions, and that's a whole other topic we can get into, but we had to, if we put a product up on TV and we got 1,000 people that called and only 300 that ordered, 700 people called but didn't order, you know what we do? We'd call them and find out what was it that made you call, but what was it that stopped you from ordering, right? Now we had this information so that we could then solve the objection. So if it was price, then we would address that issue by showing that this product is priced within the reason of all the other products in the market. So we'd bring in an expert that would, let's say we're selling a hand saw or something. We'd bring in a tool expert that would say, I went to the Home Depots and the Lowe's and looked at all the saws in the market, and this is the range that they're in, and this is what they do in their, their performances. And our product would outperform and do it at the same price and whatever. So all of a sudden, we covered all those objections. Again, without even seeing the customer. But we could take 1,000 calls, 300 orders, turn it to 1,000 calls, 800 orders by handling the no's correctly. So, and this is a process, it's a system, it's a science.
It is.
And And so what Zig would say, like I have always said, is if they can say no that quickly, they can say yes just as quickly once you elevate that value proposition. And so there's another thing that I'll mention here. Let's say, it was price. A lot of times that means, okay, they haven't seen enough value, so you've heard the term, but wait, there's more. Because you get down to the point of you've given them the price on the product and then said, but wait, we're not done yet. We're going to give you some more value because, it's $29.95 what we're selling, but we're going to also give you this that's worth $20 and this that's worth $20 and this. So we're giving you $150 in value for $29.95. Now you've overcome that objection for sure. So I always like to understand what the objections are, isolate them, answer them, and provide more value wherever possible to close that sale. And now you eliminate the objections, and in my case, they're picking up the phone with their credit card.
Now that you know the secret, welcome the word no. It's time to take action. It may be time to change the way you respond when you hear the word no from a prospective client. Your response can have a profound impact on your ability to close the sale. If you haven't already, open your guidebook and complete your exercises and record your key takeaway for this secret so you can start enjoying your sales success now.
You are not in the objection answering business. You're in the business of selling your idea, product, or service. That means it's not your job to endlessly respond to every objection or to win everyone over to your cause. Some people simply won't be the right fit, and that's okay. It's important for you not to become too consumed with answering every single objection. Get prepared to answer as many as possible because preparation precedes achievement. But at the end of the day, remember, why are you hearing objections in the first place? To make sales. Don't get so caught up in dealing with every single objection when what you really need to do is move on and keep your focus on your primary mission. For example, one of the most frequent objections I hear from entrepreneurs and salespeople is about price. Your price is too high. Why do you charge so much? You don't want to get caught in the trap of answering that all day. Don't let people monopolize your time. Isolate the objection so you can answer the one that matters to them. You do that by asking questions to get them all out on the table. Take it as an opportunity to resell them once again on the positives so you can focus on the objections that really matter to them. So let's turn to Zig again to hear his perspective on it. And as you do, think about how his lessons can apply to your own product or service. Let's watch Zig continue to teach us this secret.
Now, regardless of the kind of prospect, if the objection occurs during the presentation, there's some basics you can follow, especially on the first objection. And it's appropriate to answer it at that point. A lot of times it's not appropriate, but if it is appropriate and they bring it up at that point, for example, you might be demonstrating tires or something, and the prospect might say, well, I don't believe these tires are rugged enough for our use. Now, what do you do there? Well, number one, you hear the objection out. Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, put it this way: he who answereth the matter before he hears it is not wise. Let them get the objection out. Now, number two, you act pleased that they brought it up. Objections thrive on opposition, but they die with agreement. I'm really glad you raised that issue. Don't use the word objection. Raise that issue. And you truly should be, because that says, I'm interested. Then number three, you change the objection to a question. Your question, as I understand it, is, will these tires hold up under the day-to-day pounding our city streets will give them? Is that what you're asking? That way you get the customer involved. Then number 4, you need to get the commitment that this is the only question. Mr. Prospect, is this the only question you have which stands between you and ownership of these tires, or would there be something else? You obviously wait for the answer. Then number 5, you use the question, objection, as the reason for going ahead. Actually, Mr. Prospect, you say, the question you raise is the reason we do so much business in this city. Fleet test after fleet test firmly establish the fact that our super reinforced steel-belted radials with Durabrig are ideally suited for rugged city street usage. As a matter of fact, that's the very reason that XYZ Company. And then you take step number 5. You parade your testimonials and you close the sale at that point. Now, if the prospect brings up another objection after you've completed your presentation, handle it in the same manner. But if they bring up yet another objection, you respond with a question. Mr. Prospect, do you mind if I ask you a question? And you get their answer. Then the question is this the only question which stands between you and a favorable decision concerning our product, or would there be something else? If that's the only other question, you answer it, you assume the sale, and you attempt to close. But if the prospect says, well, I'm also concerned about, and they start bringing other things out, then what you do is you take your talking pad that we keep talking about. And whatever the objection might be, it might be price, you write it down. It might be they don't know that much about your company. It might be the guarantee. You write them down. Then you simply say, are these the only objections? You deal with them one at a time, and as you deal with them, you simply say, is that a satisfactory answer to your question? And then you cross them out. Does that clarify the issue to your satisfaction? Would be another way of putting it. Now, as you cross them out, when you've got them all crossed out, then subliminally what you have said there with that little bit of demonstration is that I've eliminated any reason for you not owning the product. Now, therefore, it behooves you. You, in essence, have said, I want to go ahead and do business with you. When you use the right words and you're selling the right product, and use the right inflection in your voice, then you've got an infinitely better chance of making the sale. Let me say that those voice inflections can completely change the meaning and intent of words. For example, how many of you realized that in the Bible it clearly says that man was born cursing? Did you know that? If you don't believe it, look it up. It's Job 3:1, and it clearly says, and Job cursed the day he was born. Now, the only thing is that little comma is not in there. When you took the comma and put it in, that completely changed the meaning. For example, let's take something like, I did not say he stole her money. Now, those are 8 words. And we can make them say 8 different things with voice inflection. This is why good professional salespeople need a cassette recorder, so they can record their presentation and listen to their voice and listen to that voice inflection. For example, when I say, I did not say he stole her money, that's just a statement of fact. But alter it slightly. I did not say he stole her money. Completely different meaning. Or, I did not. That's a vehement denial. Say he stole her money. Or, I did not say he stole her money. Completely different. Or, I did not say he stole her money. That was a rascal over there that did it. Or, I did not say he stole her money. He's going to put it back. I mean, he's just borrowing it. Or, I did not say he stole her money. It was hers that the rascal stole. Or, I did not say he stole her money. It was a diamond ring the rascal got. Now, you see, we took 8 words in one sentence, made them say 8 entirely different things. And when you become a serious student of selling and learn what those voice inflections are and how you can handle them, it makes a dramatic difference. Charles Osgood says,
compared to the spoken word. Charles Osgood says, compared to the spoken word, a picture is a pitiful thing indeed. Words move people. They move them emotionally. Now, if you can put the word and the picture together, now we're in business. Now, different prospects will object differently. For example, one prospect might stomp his foot in essence and say, that price is ridiculous. How many of you have ever had somebody, really respond in a manner like that? Another one might say, well, it seems to me the price is a little high. You might have a good old boy down home type fella, and he might say, you folks kind of proud of that stuff you sell, ain't you? Now, they're all talking price, but you handle them in a totally different way. The one who says that price is ridiculous, you don't argue with him. You don't say, no, it's not either. You repeat what they said, but you do it this way. You lower your voice, you look them right in the eye, and simply say, the price is ridiculous? Now, that sounded so simple, but you'll have to hear that a number of times to get that inflection right. What I did at the very end, my voice was rising. And what that does is it physically moves the objection back to the prospect side of the table. You are now selling on offense instead of defense because the prospect now has to defend their statement instead of you justifying the price. Now, because everything is selling, ladies, let me go ahead and tell you this, that works infinitely better even at home. For example, let's say that you beat your husband home, and you've had really a tough day, and as he walks in, you greet him warmly, of course, and give him a big old smooch, and then you back up about 3 steps, you look at him and a big old smile and say, honey, did you want to take me to Alamans or Farfallows for dinner? He might say, I don't want to take you anywhere to dinner. You don't argue with him. You just simply repeat what he said. You don't want to take me to dinner, hon? It almost ain't fair. It really is not. Now, let's say that it's grass cutting time, and so you say to your 14-year-old, okay, son, it's time to cut the grass. I don't want to cut the grass. You don't argue with him. You repeat what he said. You lower your voice. You look him right in the eye and say, you don't want to cut the grass, son? I can absolutely guarantee, whether you want them to take their toys to the back room or cut the television set off or get the repair person to come out and repair the air conditioning on a brutally hot Friday night, I can tell you it works dramatically better.
About 10 years ago, I was passing through St. Louis, Missouri. I had a little time to invest, and so I was down at the carousel close to where the shoe shine stand is, and they've changed the structure in these last 10 years. But I needed a shine, and so I walked up to the little area there where they shine shoes, very small room. And all 4 of the guys in their shining shoes were busy. There were no more chairs, and so I just kind of stood at the entranceway. In a couple of minutes, the young man in the 3rd chair finished shining, and his prospect put his paper down as he climbed out of the chair. And the young man pointed at me and said, you're next. I climbed up in the chair and sat down. The young shoe shiner finished the cash transaction with his customer, and while he was doing that, I was looking at the prices, and in that time, the regular shine was 75 cents, the wax shine was $1, and the spit shine was $2. Well, I looked at it carefully. I said, well, I'll get the 75-cent shine, tip the guy a quarter, and I'll be on my way. Well, the young man whose name was Johnny, I know it was because he had his name tag on, came over and looked at me and he said, what kind? I said, I'll take the regular. He literally took a step backwards, looked up at me and said, regular? Should have known then I was in for an unusual shoe shine. But I wasn't about to let that dude get the best of me, so I said, yeah, you guys do such a fantastic job, and I'll be on my way in a matter of minutes. Well, he never said a thing, never even grunted. He just reached over and he got the saddle soap to clean the shoes with, and he quickly put that all over both shoes. Then he took the drying cloth and dried my left shoe. As soon as he finished drying it, he ran his fingers over the leather, and you could hear them squeak from a block off. I mean, he had them squeaky clean. He said, man, these are really nice shoes. And I said, well, thank you very much. He said, they're Bally's, aren't they? And I said, as a matter of fact, they are. He said, don't they cost a lot of money? I said, oh, brother, do they ever cost a lot of money? But I said, I do a lot of work on my feet, and I said, I really need comfortable shoes. He said, I bet they are comfortable, aren't they? I said, they are really a comfortable pair of shoes. Well, he had by then finished drying the shoes off, and he reached over to get the polish to put on them. But before he did, he reached up and he grabbed my pant leg, and he said, man, that is the most unusual piece of cloth I think I have ever felt. Well, it is an unusual piece of cloth. My good friend, Doyle Hoyer from Fort Madison, Iowa, who sells me my clothes, whom I'll be talking about later, Doyle says to me that this piece of cloth comes from Ireland. He guarantees it's going to last me at least 5 years. And I believe it will, because I've already been wearing it a couple of years, and I can't even tell that it's not a brand new suit. He said, well, what kind of suit is it? I said, well, it's a Hickey Freeman. Man, he said, those dudes do cost money. I said, well, yeah, they're not inexpensive, but the cloth on this one really made it especially expensive. But I said, I'm convinced I have got a real good buy. Well, I ended up wearing that suit nearly 10 years. I had the lapels altered so it fit, and after about 8 years, I put new lining in it. But other than that, beautiful suit, all of that length of time. I was sharing, how sold I was on the suit, and he was shining away, And I don't know how much you know about shoe shining, but let me give you one little basic fact about them. When the lady or the guy doing the shining, when you hear that cloth popping, now that popping has got nothing whatever to do with the shining. That is merchandising. That is sales talk. And I'm in favor of that all the way. I'm in favor of it. He's trying to attract the crowd from outside to come in and see what's going on. Well, he was just a shining and a popping, and all of a sudden between pops, he stopped, he backed away, he looked right into my eyes and said, it just seemed like a shame. Man will spend over $100 on a pair of shoes. He'll spend several $100s on a suit of clothes. And all he's trying to do is look his best. Then he won't spend another $1 to get the best looking shoe shine in the whole world to top all of the rest of it off. I said, spit on him, man, spit on him.
Now that you have the secret, you are not in the objection answering business. It's time to take action. It is good to be prepared to answer objections, but some people are just not going to be the right fit for you. Do you want to make a sale or win an argument? If you haven't already, grab your guidebook and complete your exercises and record your key takeaway for this secret so you can start enjoying your sales success now.
Words are powerful, and words define reality for you and for your customers or audience. They deliver information, they convey emotion, they can make sales or lose them. They can draw people to you or push them away. Positive words bring positive results. Negative words bring negative results. But most people don't invest the time they should in understanding how words work in selling and using them well. Remember, selling is a transference of feeling. But if you can't communicate effectively, you'll struggle to convey the right feeling or send the wrong message entirely. Let's watch as Zig Ziglar reveals the power of words. Plus, he shares specific words to use and the words that you're going to want to avoid.
Somebody once said that one picture was worth 1,000 words. Well, the individual who said that, or those people who believe that, have actually, or obviously, never really read the Declaration of Independence. They've never read Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. They've never really read the 23rd Psalm. Now, all of those were words. They were just words. But think of the impact they've had on the lives of so many millions of people. Charles Osgood expressed it this way: compared to the spoken word, the picture is a pitiful thing indeed. Now that's pretty strong, but that's one of the reasons I am always so disturbed when I hear someone using, especially a salesperson, using profane barnyard language. I've never yet heard of that kind of talk creating a sale, but boy, I've heard of lots of cases where it cost the sale. You see, words do paint pictures, and the picture needs to be the right one. From time to time, I have people ask of me, how do you want me to introduce you for the program? Do you want me to introduce you as a speaker? And I always say, no, please tell them I am a teacher. You see, a speaker informs people. They often inspire them. They often entertain them. But teachers give them something which they can take home and use that day, that week, that month, that year. It will have a big and different impact in their lives. As we get involved in the teaching process about the use of words, some words are negative and some words are positive. My friend, sales trainer Tom Norman, has put together a list of words. Some are negative and some are positive. And what we want to do is look, first of all, at some of those positive words. Now, the first positive word, of course, is that prospect's name. We all agree that's a very positive word. Understand is a positive word. Proven, health, easy, guarantee, money, safety, save, new, love, discovery, right, results, truth, comfort, proud, profit. Oh, we like that one, don't we, business people? Deserve, happy, trust, value, fun, vital. And then Yale University adds a few words to that list. You is a positive word. Security, advantage, positive, benefits, and of course, two of the most beautiful words of all, faith and hope. It's important to use the right words, the positive, motivating ones, and eliminate the negative, demotivating ones. We need to build our presentation around the positive record so that you can be certain not to use. You know what I mean. A lot of times a salesman, you get to talking, and everything he says, after you've been listening to him, a minute or two, well, you know what I say, when I'm talking like this, don't you? Have you ever been around somebody and they have you climbing the wall in about 9 seconds flat when they keep saying the same thing over and over? Understand what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You go bananas. And then occasionally I've been around somebody who had just been told you're supposed to use the prospect's name all the time. And so what do is they use a name. Well, Mr. Jones, here's the thing, Mr. Jones, if you'll follow this, Mr. Jones, what you'll find, Mr. Jones, is this, Mr. Jones. And absolutely in about a couple of minutes again, it's driving you out of your gourd. That's the reason we need to be aware of those words. It's the reason we need to regularly record our presentations and listen back to hear what we're saying. Words can make a dramatic difference. I became aware of this several years ago when I was in Indianapolis, Indiana, having a meal there at the Hyatt Hotel. And they brought that menu out, and when I looked at it, I thought to myself, oh, brother, we've got a salesperson with a verbal paintbrush who really knows how to use words. I read it and listened to this. Spinach Supreme, a tumultuous arrangement of fresh spinach leaves mingled with Enoch mushrooms. Now, let me stop right here. How many of you folks know what Enoch mushrooms are? Tell me the truth. Hold up your hand if you know what Enoch mushrooms are. But don't they sound good? crisp chips of bacon and ripe tomato with our superb hot bacon dressing. And listen to this one. For protein lovers, Mr. Chopped Sirloin conducts an orchestra of fresh vegetables, fruits, and eggs to an audience of shredded lettuce with an accompaniment of frozen yogurt and cottage cheese. Can you imagine a better use of words?
Words are so important, and they can make or break your sales process. Zig shared some positive words. Here are some negative ones to avoid: cost, deal, pay, contract, sign, worry, loss, lose, hurt, buy, sell, sold, price, decision, hard, difficult, obligation, liable, and failure. So Kevin, why are those words negative and why are some words positive? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so Zig was a master with his inflection, with his words, with his speaking, his talent, his movements, right? I love following and studying Zig Ziglar because he was the master, right? But words that were positive, like aspirational, hope-inducing, the future seems brighter, those are words that would put people in a mental state of wanting to buy, right? And so in my world, we have sort of a process of selling also. We call it a tease, a please, and a seize.
Okay.
And when you tease, you get their attention with a problem. So you state the problem, get their attention, you please with major benefits and positive things, right? So now, now on the front end, you may show a couple of problems that might have a couple of those negative words, but when you're in the selling mode, so the teasing is just to get their attention.
Okay.
So, because they can acknowledge that, okay, they've got some problems, right? Now, you're the savior. You're going to solve those problems, and you're going to use now the positive words.
Right.
So this is the time that you talk about the plus, the benefits, the cleaning capabilities, and in OxyClean with Billy Mays, it was the power of oxygen oxygenates the cleaning system, right? So these are powerful words. And so Zig was a real believer. Nobody up until that time had ever thought about putting oxygen into cleaning and how that was such a benefit, but the oxygenation process, that was a very powerful, very positive word that created a $300-some million company. So your clothes will be brighter, cleaner, more beautiful. They're going to smell fresh, right? People start visualizing those words, and it's a very powerful way to sell. So and in the world of SEM and TV that I come out of, and now we're in the digital world, online, it's a visual world. So so how can you use visual types of demonstration, visual types of words that people can be thinking very positive about? And then I said the T's, the please, and the C's. The C's is now some kind of an irresistible offer. Okay, no, that sounds like a pretty good word, irresistible offer, right? So, at the end of the day, you've made such a great, offer here that I have to have it. So, this was Zig's way of selling, was making sure that you gave them the opportunity to kind of analyze things themselves. And, yes, I've got a problem. Now, you've solved that problem, and I see all these aspirational kinds of words that are part of that solution. And now, what a great deal. Oh, there's no other thing to do but make the purchase, right? So you kind of just lead them right into making the sale.
So one word that you use very successfully is a word that some people would consider negative, but you consider it positive, and that's the word pitch.
Yes.
So why do you believe so strongly in that word, and what do you mean by it?
So, it's if you're in a professional sales environment, to talk about pitching is negative, okay, and to the consumer or to the end purchaser, right? So, I don't use it. You will never hear the word pitch on QVC because there's consumers watching. Right now, back in the buying department, you go to present the product to the buyer.
Right.
The buyer wants to hear the perfect pitch.
The pitch.
Okay, so on a business to business level, when I met Arnold, I said, that's one of the greatest pitches that I've seen, right? And he took it as a major compliment, right? And so when we were on Shark Tank filming, we would say, give us a perfect pitch, because we're business people.
Yeah.
This is B2B, right? So I want a great pitch because I can understand. I've taken 50,000 pitches over the last 30 years. So I can understand. My mind takes a pitch and analyzes it and puts it into buckets. And there's 10 buckets that I look for in a perfect pitch. And so, look, it's as business people, we can talk about things and say things that you don't put on your sales copy to the consumer. So Procter & Gamble is not going to say, hey, buy our new toothpaste because we got a great pitch for that product, right?
Yeah.
That's a negative word. And that's what Zig's referring to when he talks about pitch actually being negative. So it's on the consumer level. So
makes sense.
If you're a salesperson making a presentation, okay? And so let me give you a further example. At QVC, I said, you'll never hear the word pitch on the air.
Right.
This is how they look at their selling process. They call it, let's go, you're in your backyard, maybe just, kind of walking around, having a little coffee, and your neighbor's over there. You kind of lean over and you look, and you tell your neighbor, I just got something really cool. Or the neighbor says, what kind of lawnmower is that you're using? Talking over the fence to your neighbor is how the presenters on QVC are telling the people watching QVC what products, this is what I use in my kitchen.
Exactly.
This is what I use in my home. And I think you should check it out, right? So, that's not pitching.
Okay.
And we'd never use that word pitch in that process. So it's amazing how yes, if they get a pitch person at QVC that comes out with this high, fast pitch and fast talking and all of that, it's a turnoff, and they'll yank them. They'll actually write them up and say, listen, if you ever want to come back on the air here, you never, they got a little button that goes off, and you're not coming back, because that was a pitch.
Okay.
We don't pitch our customers. We tell them about opportunities to make their life better, easier, and more comfortable. So, and I think ultimately that was Zig's way of doing things. Is those getting back to the words, positive words, easier, more comfortable, et cetera, life-changing, aspirational, et cetera. On the business side, though, I go to the Houseware show in Chicago. I've got to take 96 pitches in an afternoon. I just say, give me the pitch, okay? Because I want to get it and do it and get on, right? Yeah. But again, when we talk to the consumer, it's about talking to them over the fence, about problem-solving products that can change and help their life.
Love it. Makes sense. So how important is it for a salesperson to have a script, to be scripted? And should they use a script or just bullet points? So,
great question. I go all the way back to 15 years old when I was starting to sell, 16 years old when I was selling these little safety high chairs. I had a 30-page script.
Wow.
And I think Bruce, who gave it to me, figured this, I'll never see this kid again. Right? Here you go, kid. Go read the 30-page script and good luck, because figured he's going to get to page 3 and think I can't do this. But I was good at memorizing stuff. I was a pretty good student, and so I read that script, memorized it, and was pretty good at reciting it. Not exactly word for word, but I think you start in bullets, bullets, outlines, and then as you get better and better, and it depends on the script. If it's a 2-minute script, Billy Mays, as powerful as he was, wanted every single word in a script in advance. And the reason being is because we would all sit around, wordsmith to the point of getting the exact best words to say, and there was no deviance from that. So now, unless every now and then, as professional as Billy was, if he came up on the spot with something ad lib that was better, he'd put it in the can. Now you had the option of using either one, and you could actually test either one in what we call an A/B split testing process. So, but Billy was such a pro that he would read that script exactly to the word, because he realized experts, including himself, he was part of that process, came up with that script. So one word can make a big difference. And so I believe, number one, if you're a starting salesperson and you have not been a great success in sales, stick with the script, because it's a script for a reason. It's proven, or in many cases, scripts for salespeople are time tested, and they already know what that these are the right words, the right things, the right place, the right timing, et cetera, et cetera. But if you got to try to memorize 30 pages, you can't memorize word for word 30 pages. So there you got to start with an outline, bullet points, until you've done it enough that you can actually memorize it and then be more scripted. But if you're working off of a 2-minute spot, like we were with Billy Mays, every single word was important. And I say, really hit it hard. But things like this are always subject to a possible modification or adjustment. So don't get too hung up. If you're making sales, you're doing something right. So, I would say that it's always use what's tested and proven as the guideline. And don't be moving too far off of that, especially if you're just getting started.
Okay, great advice.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
It's great to be here.
Now that we've shared the secret with you, choose your words wisely. It's time to take action. Words matter. Do you overuse certain words? We've created a positive words, negative words scripting sheet in your guidebook that can help you come up with a script that works best for you. If you haven't already, open your guidebook and complete the exercises and record your key takeaway for this secret so you can start enjoying your sales success now.
Ask. That is the simple name of a book by my friend Brian Levesque. It was named Inc. Magazine's Book of the Year. The movement to strategically ask questions is now one of the hottest trends in sales and marketing, and the master Zig Ziglar laid the groundwork for it all. Zig said, "Questions are the answer." And he was right. The single most effective way to help other people get what they want is to ask them. It's also one of the most powerful ways to build trust with potential customers, especially those who have objections to buying whatever you're selling. The most significant thing you could do right now to multiply your impact and build trust quickly is to ask questions and listen well to other people so you can respond with sincere concern for them. You may think you know what someone wants or needs, but the pro never assumes. Ask first, then test or follow up to verify understanding. Now, I'm excited to share with you a brilliant secret session from Zig Ziglar on the power of questions. In this masterful session, he shows how to use questions to make sales while also building high trust relationships. And he demonstrates the corner close. So get ready to take notes from the master. Are you ready? Here's Zig.
Chances are excellent that you've noticed something that virtually all professionals have in common. Every one of them are tastefully and conservatively dressed. The reason is very simple. Countless, and I do mean countless, psychological studies reveal that the appearance of the counselor, and that is what a professional salesperson is, has a direct bearing on whether or not the advice given is going to be followed. The second thing about professionals, whether they are doctors, lawyers, ministers, accountants, tax consultants, guidance counselors, architects, psychiatrists, or salespeople have in common is they ask a lot of questions. The reason is fairly obvious. The professional must identify your problem, your need, or desire. They got to find out what you want and what you need before they can offer the solution. They also know that if they ask you the right question, you will often come up with the solution. That way it's your idea, so when it's your idea, your chances of enthusiastically following through are dramatically increased. For the professional salesperson, the advantages are obvious because it bears out the concept that you can have everything in life you want. In this case, more sales, if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. In this case, a solution to the problem, incidentally. The professional also directs the interview so that the prospect or person being counseled asks questions so that he, the expert, can give advice which is relevant to the prospect's needs and concerns. That's really what it's all about. In a nutshell, selling isn't just telling, it's asking. Now, I'm obviously not talking about the police interrogator or the prosecuting attorney approach, where they put you on the griddle. I'm talking about the counselor consultant, the helpful friend approach. Let me share with you a story out of my own sales background. And as I share this story, I want you to notice the number of questions that go back and forth. I also really want to encourage you to notice something, that when we reach a particular area of the questioning, this is where the salesperson's self-image is so important. A lot of people, because of a fear of rejection, or a fear they're going to offend somebody, or a fear they're going to miss that sale if they pursue a particular point, are a little bit weak when they start to nail down some of their points. In 1962, I was selling in the cookware business. I was in Columbia, South Carolina. Now, I've always believed in nest selling. By that, I simply mean I believe in selling in a small area. When I was in the life insurance business, I used to work in one large building or one very small town. I've always felt that if you drive long distances when you've got prospects right there, that what you should do when you get in the car for a long trip with 500,000 prospects next door is you ought to put on a chauffeur's hat, because that's really what you're doing. You're just driving around. Well, anyhow, the little town of St. Matthews, South Carolina, is at that time, about 25 miles from my back door where I lived in Columbia, South Carolina. And I got started in that area, and we put on the group demonstrations at night. In less than 6 months, I sold over $40,000 worth of cookware in that little bitty town. And those days, that was a powerful lot of cookware. I'll never forget one evening I had a demonstration, 7 couples. The next day, as I was making my calls, I sold the first 5, knocked on the door for the 6th one. I remember it well. A booming voice came forth. "Come on in, Mr. Ziegler." I walked in, and there stood this big fella. Obviously had been there the evening before with his wife. He was about 6 feet 6 or 7 inches tall, weighed over 300 pounds, but he was not fat. He was just a big man. As I walked in, he said, "Glad to see you. Me and you both know I ain't gonna buy no $400 set of pots, but it's good to see you." Well, now let me emphasize a point. That old boy had eaten food the night before in direct proportion to his size. I had bought that food, I had cooked that food, I had served that food. So his introduction to our interview wasn't exactly ideal as far as I was concerned. So when he said that, I kind of grinned and I said, "Well, no, sir. Now, I did not know it. You might have, but I didn't." He said, "Well, might as well be up front and tell you, I'm glad to talk to you because I understand that's part of the deal so the hostess can get her prize. But," he said, "I'm not about to buy no $400 set of pots." I kind of grinned. I said, "Well, Mr. Prospect, looks like you and I have lots in common." He said, "Oh, how's that?" And I said, "Well, in my particular case, my wife spends our money and the neighbors take care of our business, and all I have to do is work." Now, I said, "I don't know what your situation is as far as your wife is concerned, but I can tell you your neighbors are taking care of your business." "Oh," he said, "how's that?" Very jovial fella. And I said, "Well, each place I've been to 5 of them. And in every case, after they had gotten their set of cookware, had to slip that one in, I said, they would all ask me, 'What did Mr. So-and-so do?' And I said, 'Well, I haven't seen him yet.' They'd say, 'Let me know what he does.' I finally asked one of them, 'Well, why does everybody want to know what this particular individual does?' And old boy laughed. He said, 'They probably told you I was the biggest tightwad in the county.' I said, well, now, one of them did say something about first dollar. But I said, I'm not sure I understood what he meant. He kind of laughed. He said, me and you both know you know exactly what he meant. I said, yeah, I guess I did. But I said, isn't that amazing? You were born and raised right in this little area. He said, yep, never left 5 miles from here. And I said, isn't that amazing? You were born and raised right here, and nobody here really knows anything about you. And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, I thought you said you were not going to get the cookware. He said, I'm not. I said, isn't that amazing? You were raised around these people. None of them know you. He said, explain what you're saying. I said, well, Mr. Prospect, let me ask you a question. Last evening, were you sincere? Don't ever ask anybody if they're telling you the truth. That's an insult. I said, were you sincere last night when you said that you knew that your family could save at least $1 a day cooking in our set of cookware? We made a big to-do about demonstrating the economy. He said, Mr. Ziegler, I'll tell you, big as my family is, I could save $2 a day. He said, I got 4 boys and they're all bigger than I am, and they all eat more than I do, and you know how much I ate last night. He said, I could save $2. I said, well, $1 a day then would be very conservative, wouldn't it? He said, it sure would. I said, then if I cut that dollar half in two instead of $0.50 a day, that would be ultra conservative, wouldn't it? He said, yes, it would. Now notice this. Then I said to him, well, if that set of cookware will save you 50 cents a day, that means it costs you 50 cents a day not to have it, doesn't it? Well, he said, I suppose you could say that. I said, no, sir. What I say is not important. I'm talking about your money. So what do you say? Well, he said, I suppose I could say the same thing. I said, no, sir. Now, we can take that "suppose" out, can't we? He said, you're the most persistent guy I think I've ever seen. I said, well, I'm talking about your money. He said, okay, we'll take it out. Yes, I could save 50 cents a day. Then I insisted that means it cost you 50 cents a day not to have that set of cookware. He said, okay, point's made. I said, now, Mr. Prospect, what that really means is this. It means that every 2 days, your wife will take $1 out of the family larder, and because she does not have this method of preparing the food and saving shrinkage and electricity and all of that, it means that she literally every 2 days will take $1 out of the family treasury and tear that $1 bill all to pieces. Every 2 days she will do that, and it really amounts to the fact that she'll just throw it away. Now, said Mr. Prospect, that's not so bad. I mean, from what your neighbors tell me, and please understand me, I'm smiling when I'm saying this. According to what your neighbors say, $1 is no big deal. They tell me these 1,100 acres of good fertile land under cultivation don't belong to you and the bank. They belong to you. This beautiful home does not belong to you and savings and loan. It belongs to you. But according to your neighbors, you sure do hate to see something happen to one of them dollars. But you know, that's not so bad until you realize that on that program, that every 40 days what will happen is that your wife will reach in and pull out a brand new $20 bill out of the family treasure. And she will literally, every 40 days, she will take that brand new $20 bill and she will literally tear it all to pieces and just throw it away. Now, let me ask this audience a question. When I started to tear up that money, how many of you felt a little hitch in the pocketbook? Can I see your hand? How many of you, when I started to tear up the dollar bill, said, oh, he's not going to do it? And then when I started to tear up that $20 bill, you said, he's not going to do that. I know he's not. How many of you kind of had those feelings? Some of you might have thought, well, it's a trick. He didn't really do it. I'm here to tell you it's not a trick. That's real money. It happened. Well, let me take you back to the scene in this man's living room. Notoriously conservative. When I tore that money up, cold sweat. Now, you understand, I'm assuming it is cold. I did not do a body check at that particular point. But cold sweat broke out on his forehead. And I asked him, I said, Mr. Prospect, what did you think when I tore up that dollar? He said, I thought you was crazy. I said, what'd you think when I tore up a $20 bill? He said, didn't think a thing. He said, I knew you were. I said, Mr. Prospect, whose money was that? He said, I hope it's yours. I said, it is. And I said, yet you hated to see me tear up my money, didn't you? He said, I sure did. I said, Mr. Prospect, don't you feel even closer to that money, which is your very own? He said, what are you getting at? I said, Mr. Prospect, as I understand it, now, when you see me go to the board to write, that means that you need to have your talking pad out so that you can show your prospects what you are figuring on doing. I said to the prospect, I said, from what I was told last night, you've been married nearly 23 years. He said, yeah, it'll be 23 years in August or whenever. I said, well, I don't know how to multiply times 23, but I'm a whiz times 20. From what you have now told me today, you believe that you could save 50 cents a day by having our set of cookware, or it's cost you 50 cents a day not to have it. That's $182.50 a year. Now, since you've been married over those 20 years, I want to switch it back to $180 because I can multiply times 180 real easy. That means, Mr. Prospect, that in 20 years, you have already invested, paid is a better word for it, wasted maybe even, $3,600 not to have a set of our cookware. And now you tell me you want to invest $400 to have a set of the cookware. I said, Mr. Prospect, that's government thinking if I have ever seen it in my life. That's government thinking. But I said, that's not so bad because maybe you didn't know about this until now. But now you're saying to me, look, Mr. Ziegler, in the next 20 years, I'm going to spend another $3,600 in waste for a total of $7,200 not to have a set of the cookware, but no, I'm not going to give you $400 to own a set of the cookware. Let me say it again. I'm smiling when I'm saying this. I said, now, Mr. Prospect, I hate to threaten anybody, but in your case, I'm going to make an exception. I'm going to ruin your reputation in this community if you don't buy a set of my cookware. And the reason is very simple. These people, your friends, they think you are conservative. But me and you both know that any time a man will spend $7,200 not to have a set of our cookware and won't give $400 to own a set of the cookware, he is not conservative. He is a wild-eyed liberal, for sure. It got awful quiet for a minute, and he said asked something that really impacted my sales career. He said, Mr. Ziegler, what could I tell my neighbors? Very significant. You see, people buy for two reasons, for themselves and for other people. They might say it doesn't make any difference what anybody else is doing. Don't you believe it in most cases? Now, why would he ask that question? And why must we include some logic and some facts for them to make their decisions on? Simply so they can tell their friends, relatives, and neighbors why they bought it. You see, this man had assured everybody. He had told the hostess when she invited him, I'll come eat the man's food. I'm not going to buy no $400 set of pots. The night of the demonstration, he was late arriving. When he walked in, they got to kidding him. Hey, partner, I say you've come to buy that $400 set of pots. You know how good friends kid each other. He said, I ain't going to buy no $400 set of pots. I come to eat the man's food. Now he's asking, what can I tell my neighbors? He's painted himself in a corner. So many times, prospects do that. They paint themselves in a corner. They've told another salesman 6 months ago, if I ever buy the machine, I'll get it from you. They've even forgotten his name. Or in some cases, it might be another case where they're legitimately in the corner. If we can get them out, the sale is a foregone conclusion. I knew the sale was mine if I could get the man out of the corner. What will I tell my neighbors? I said, I'm going to give you some words to use, and if you'll do this, not only will your neighbors love you even more, but they will respect you even more. I'm going to go ahead and write this up. I'm going to mark it paid in full, because I know you're not going to fool around paying interest since you're a conservative individual. And we both kind of laughed when I said that. And I'm going to give you the receipt written right across the top, paid in full. And I'm going to suggest that you take this and go to see each one of your friends. And when you walk in, just wave the slip of paper. They'll recognize it because they've got one the same color. Now, I said, when you walk in, be prepared. They're going to razz you like you've never been razzed before. Just stand there and grin. Let them go ahead and do it. And when they do get through, here's what you need to tell them. You look at them and say, yes, I clearly said I wasn't going to get it. But when I made that statement, all I knew was the price. I had no idea what the benefits were. And when I realized it would be better for my family, that it would save my wife work, and for that matter, would save me some money. And when I realized that I could not let my own stubbornness stand in the way of doing something for my family, especially since I had the money, I bit my tongue and went ahead and bought it. I said, Mr. Prospect, they'll love you more because it takes a big man to admit he made a premature decision.
Now that you know the secret, questions are the answer. It's time to take action. Asking questions lets people know that you care about what their needs are, and that helps build trust. You will see in your guidebook that we've compiled a list of key questions you should be asking before you start selling. If you haven't already, open up your guidebook and complete the exercises and record your key takeaway for this secret so you can start enjoying your sales success now.
Did you know you can lose a sale by saying too much? That's right. If you talk too much, you can talk someone out of buying what you're selling. But why does silence make us so uncomfortable? Why do we feel like we have to say something, anything, instead of listening to the prospect? People want to be heard. They want you to listen to them. So give them the opportunity. And as Zig shares in the following video, one of the worst things you can do is to oversell. Let's watch as he reveals the importance of listening and not overselling.
Listen is such an important skill. It's hard, if not impossible, to listen your way out of a sale. As a matter of fact, on everybody's list of desirable qualities, a good listener has got to rate right there at the top. It is so important that we do learn how to listen, but there's a couple of things about it that I really want to emphasize, and that is when the prospect says no, we need not to hear that. As a matter of fact, oftentimes we don't even want to hear it. We also need to learn how to listen, not just with our ears, but also with our eyes. For example, when the prospect is saying to you, no, I wouldn't give you that much money for one of the low-price 3 automobiles or whatever, but all the time they're gently stroking the upholstery. Their mouth is saying, too much money and I won't buy it. But their body is saying, look, friend, all you got to do is convince me. I'm interested. Make it worth the money to me, and then we'll go ahead and buy. One prospect might say, nah, this home's just too far out of town. And then they walk to that back bedroom where that big picture window is, and they look out at that gorgeous view. What you need to do is be listening not only with your ears, but also with your eyes. And as I said earlier, when the prospect says no, you definitely do not want to always hear that one. Have a good friend, one of the most remarkable ladies I think I've ever met. Her name is Merle Hoke. Merle was from Great Falls, South Carolina. Merle had one of the most peculiar hearing problems I think I have ever experienced. A customer could get right down in her face and say, no, Merle, I don't want to buy. Merle wouldn't bat an eyelash. she hadn't heard a thing. I've seen them whisper yes at 60 paces. And Myrlie picked up absolutely every syllable of it. An amazing lady. She was one of the most consistent people I've ever seen in the world of selling. She was professional. She had memorized her handling of objections. She had memorized her closes to the degree that they were so natural you never would have even remotely suspected that they were memorized. One of the little phrases, and I've watched her on sales calls a number of times, which she always used, she would make it her business to be seated directly in front of the lady. And as she would start her closing move, she would invariably pick up her chair and begin to move to the other side, and she would reach up and she would put her hand on the lady's shoulder. She always said exactly the same thing. This is so beautiful, and you deserve to have it. And I'm going to help you. That's H-E-P. I'm going to help you get it. You got the distinct feeling, as I sat there, I did, that it was Myrlie and this lady. And they were ganging up on that big old cookware coming up there. They got thousands of sets of cookware. And bless your heart, you hadn't even got one. And I'm going to help you get it. She always used the other person's money. But Myrlie was literally an assistant buyer. She had moved literally and figuratively, emotionally, and every other way to the prospect side of the table. Learn to listen, but when the prospect says no, please understand that the reason they say N-O, is that they do not K-N-O-W, know enough to say yes. They don't know enough of the benefits. And the one thing that you must be very careful about is you must not oversell. When I think of overselling, I think of the story of the Roman Catholic girl dating the Southern Baptist boy. And after about the 5th date, she came home one evening and she obviously was in trouble. I mean, Mom looked at her and knew that her daughter was in love. And she said, "Now, daughter, you know us Catholics don't marry those Baptists, and those Baptists don't marry us Catholic. It's a losing proposition. I want you to terminate that relationship." And the girl said, "Mom, it's too late. I've fallen in love. Can't we do something?" And the loving mother said, "Well, I tell you what, let's do. Let's sell that boy on taking instruction. We'll make a good Catholic out of him, and when that happens, everything will be all right." And so they went to work on the process, and it was an easy sale. I mean, that boy was really sold on the product. There's no question about that. The wedding date was set after he'd gone through the instruction. The announcements were sent out. The gifts started coming in. Everything was all set. About a week before the wedding, the girl came in one night shedding those big crocodile tears and said, "Mom, it's all off. Cancel the wedding. Send back the gifts. Call the priest. Tell our friends." And the mother said, "Well, I'm puzzled. I can't understand it. I thought we had that boy sold on being a good Catholic." And the girl said, "Mom, that's the problem. We've oversold. He's going to be a priest." Sell professionally, sell with the right skills, sell with the right intention, but don't oversell. I believe that's one of the most important secrets if you're going to build a career in the world of selling. Sell what it is, sell what it does, sell its true value, but don't exaggerate that value. When you oversell, you end up with a short career.
We're back with Kevin Harrington to follow up on the secret that silence sells. Kevin, why do you think listening is such an important part of the sales process?
You know, so I love that silence and listening. That's so important because a lot of people that are salespeople, they tend to oversell. They tend to talk too much. And let me explain what happens. when you're talking too much and you're not listening, you don't necessarily know what the hot buttons are, what the sweet spots are, what kinds of problems they may have, and you'll never really maybe get to the reasons why they may not be buying. So I think silence and listening can preempt objections. So let me give you a good example. When one of the companies I joined the board of, they needed $20 million, and I invested the first $250,000 into the company, and then we went out to raise the rest of the $20 million. And so they lined up about 96 investors for us to talk to. Now, instead of just sitting with an investor and just telling them about how great we are, I am, the product is, the company is, which would be overselling and not listening, I would go in, meet with these folks, and by the way, we met with them at their house, our office, corner restaurant, a cup of coffee, whatever. Just give us 30 minutes, and we're going to see if this is an opportunity that works for you. And so now, the first 10 minutes I would spend asking questions, listening to their answers. Like, what kind of investments have you made before? And tell me a little bit about what you like in an investment. And now they're telling me what it is I need to sell them on.
Oh, good point.
Oh, well, I like a good management team, and I love it if there's patents and intellectual property, and I love a great business plan. Or get this one. One time, certainly a lot of people say, I want to see good profits. Okay, that's great. That's normal. But one time an investor tells me, if I see profits, I run. I don't want to see any profits. I'm like, well, okay, what's the point? Hey, do you think Facebook was profitable? No, Facebook focused on customer acquisition. So their goal was to get to 1 billion users so they could then start putting advertising and profits into play. So the point being is that here was a very sophisticated investor that said they shouldn't be making a profit in these early stages. Their focus needs to be in customer acquisition. So if I'm going to talk to him, I'm not going to say I've got this wonderfully profitable company, because he's going to get up and leave. Right? So when you listen, they tell you what you need to do to sell them. And so I think you mentioned the secret that silence can be golden. So you also, as you listen, you get a chance to kind of get an idea of what it is that's going to give them that warm and fuzzy feeling about that investment. So I just love it, and I call what we just talked about with investors, how do you get to find out what the investor sweet spot is? Now, there are 10 buckets of an investor that fit into 10 different sweet spots. And so I've analyzed this, I know this. So if I'm selling an investor, because I'm in the business of selling products to consumers, investments to investors, and dreams to board of directors in many cases. So if you're talking to consumer, it's a little bit different sell, and a little different kind of mentality and way of going about it than if you're talking to an investor or a board of directors, right? So I think it's very important that you ask a lot of questions, sit back, wait, silence is golden, and you get the right answers, and now you know how to preempt their objections and overcome, and actually they will almost give you the roadmap on what it is that it's going to take to make the sale.
Okay, you know the secret. Silence sells. So now it's time to take action. Sometimes that uncomfortable silence can be the best sound for you to hear. Let people think. If you don't, you may talk your way out of a sale. If you haven't already, open your guidebook and complete your exercises and record your key takeaway for this secret so you can start enjoying your sales success now.